When will America become America? When will America
Hi folks, welcome back.
become America?
Listen to this song if you can.
When will the home we love mean freedom for everyone? When will America become America? When does the killing stop? When the last child is derived? How long must mothers' tears rain down on streets of fear? When will the home we love bring justice to everyone? When will America become America?
Okay, that's a really poignant song right about now, especially with Black Lives Matter movement. Again, pushing for African American rights. And this is fundamentally important to what we're discussing today. We're in the last two parts of the American Revolution. And so I want to make sure we go over this. And this is what this concept is going to be about. This is LERPS. This is very special and very important. I want you to embrace this concept here. After we get that, we're going to talk about Indians in the Revolution, George Washington as the indispensable man, why the Americans won the war, what is an attrition war about, Franco-American alliance. We already referenced that a little bit. Yorktown is the last battle, and then last major battle. Cornwallis was the general who basically has to surrender at Yorktown, and then we get the Treaty of Paris, which will end the war. So let's look at this document again. What is the philosophy of government described in the Declaration of Independence? This is a concept, philosophy of government. Philosophy of government, what does that mean? You look at it in the political principles here. Political principles. And so I want you to analyze it and see if you can do it. You know, what kind of government do they talk about in this document, the Declaration of Independence? What kind of document what kind of government are they describing? And you start here and you read it and you identify information you can see. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. Ooh. A government that has equality. So that's one. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, a government that has rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Wow, there's another one. Liberty. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. We call that popular sovereignty. Okay? When the people have a right to vote, that's called popular sovereignty, right? People voting, boom. So, those are the big pieces, right? So a government that has equality, a government that has liberty, the government that has rights, and the government that has popular sovereignty. So let's see, can we make an acronym for this? Oh yeah, LERPS. LERPS, liberty, equality, rights, popular sovereignty. That is explicit in the Declaration of Independence. It's describing an ideal. A government should have these things. There's the political principles. A government that provides liberty, equality, rights, and popular sovereignty for the people. The power comes from the people. Now, they start with this. But here's the thing about American history. In all of this time that we see in American history, if we have liberty, equality, rights, and popular sovereignty, if we say these are our ideals, these are our values, in the Declaration of Independence. This is the way it's interpreted today. These are our ideals. These are our values. We are trying to get to those ideals. We want a government that has all of those things. It gives the citizens liberty and equality and rights and popular sovereignty. You have to ask yourself, well, that's what's in the Declaration, but do we have those? If this is a high level of LERPS, and this is a low level of LERPS, what do we understand about reality of LERPS in America? In 76, when this is written, is a fundamental statement about our values, our ideals, the government we want. Do we have that government at that time in 76? Of course not. Some people have LERPS. Some people do have it here. Who has rights and equality and liberty and popular sovereignty? Right here, it's adult white males with land, or rich white males, head of household. So that's a very small population have LERPS, full LERPS. White males with land could vote. They had the most rights. They had the most liberty and equality of treatment. Everyone else didn't. And again, so I have this concept, and this is how I want to organize this course. Throughout the history of America, excuse me, 1896, 1920, 1954, 64, 65, and then Obama. Let's put Obama. Okay. So what you're going to see in American history is that there is a gradual and steady, maybe not steady, progress. Maybe this isn't ideal. Let me draw this better. We have a gradual progress in being made. Here, very few people are getting LERPS. Here, more people are getting LERPS. This is the Constitution. George Washington is elected. Okay, we have the Bill of Rights. That's called an expansion of LERPS. So we have expansion of LERPS with the creation of the Constitution. I want to be expansion of LERPS. And again, if you're not understanding this, please do your best to try to get it. We have over American history, we have expansion of LERPS. More and more people are getting liberty, equality, rights, and popular sovereignty. 1830, we have voting expands under Jackson era. It's called Jacksonian democracy. White males with now only adult white males can vote. We call that universal manhood suffrage. So again, we do have expansion of LERPS for white males here. And then we get another really big expansion of rights. It's called the Civil War. We get the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendments. And you get 13th Amendment is abolition of slavery. 14th Amendment is equal treatment under the law, equality. And the 15th Amendment is voting rights for African Americans. You can't discriminate against people from voting because of their race or previous servitude. These are constitutional changes in our government. All states had to support these. That comes out of the Civil War. Do you follow? So we have a massive expansion here. Doesn't last. And so over time, eventually you're going to have the most rights we have. Black Lives Matter movement That's pushing for an expansion of rights. But we also have deficits. We also have what we call we have LERPS denied. Okay, LERPS denied. LERPS denied. Who was denied rights throughout American history? Okay, and so that's another way to analyze it. Here, in the earliest era, Native Americans were denied rights, women were denied rights, poor people were denied rights, Indians were denied rights. All of those groups were LERPS denied. Do you follow? Here you get poor whites can vote, but the rest are still LERPS denied. Here they start Jim Crow, the segregation right after the Civil War, the black codes and Jim Crow laws. LERPS denied for African Americans. Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal, 1896. Okay, that lasts all the way to the 60s. LERPS denied for African Americans. Slaves, LERPS denied for all through slavery. 1920s, women get the right to vote. That's expansion of LERPS, isn't it? 1920, boom, 19th Amendment. LERPS expanded for women. But again, LERPS denied, etc. And so my point with this is the story of American history is the story of how we go from our Declaration of Independence, 76, to say Obama and Black Lives Matter. And it's not a direct line, but right now we have the highest level of LERPS, our values, liberty, equality, rights, and popular sovereignty. We had that extreme level finally in the 21st century, and it's still not done. We're not finished. It's an ongoing process of expansion, or you can call this denial of LERPS. And so that's the story of American history. People have pushed for more LERPS, more freedom, equality, etc. And then we have other groups in our society that are pushing for less, for denial of LERPS for our citizens and our people. And thank goodness the expansion of LERPS is continuing. Unfortunately, after Obama, we have Trump. He talks expansion, but he's really about denial. The different people he's denying are immigrants. So this is an ongoing problem, and that's how you can interpret all of American history. Does this event expand LERPS or deny LERPS? And that's what how I'm going to organize this course, and I hope you can understand this. LERPS denied or LERPS expanded. I'm in favor of LERPS expanded. Liberty, equality, rights, and popular sovereignty need to be preserved. We need to live up to the ideals of the Declaration of Independence. We need to continue that struggle. And unfortunately, this president is not in favor of those things, at least by all evidence. I hope that makes sense to you. Let's continue. So the Indians in the Revolution, the Iroquois Confederation declared neutrality. They're going to be gone. Remember the Iroquois Confederation? We have lots of it. Most Indians will support the British because the Indians believe that once if the British don't win, they're going to be at the mercy of the Americans, and they're going to lose everything. And they were right. The Mohawks, Seneca, and Cayuga, most of the Indians support the British because they want to limit the Americans. Most of them will be up in Canada. The Oneida, Tuscarora support the Americans. But, you know, the story will be after the Revolution, settlers will stream across those mountains, and the Indians will have their way of life destroyed eventually. Washington as the indispensable man. Here is the book we started a little bit under the French and Indian War. This is a wonderful book. It's a lot of psychology to George Washington. George Washington is a virtuous and heroic leader. He makes the difference, and he gets basically, he preserves the revolution. If he were to have quit the revolution, the army would have disintegrated and the British would have won. He had the best strong reputation for honesty and morality. He was all about being disinterested or away from his self-interest. He had really strict and problematic views on slavery. He was a slave holder, but he believed that it was problematic. And at the end of his life, he freed his slaves, and Martha did also, and provided for their care. So he did know it was wrong, and he did try to make some amends. He was a mediocre military leader. He wasn't a great, he's a mixed bag. He wasn't a great military leader. He loses more battles than he wins, but he kept the army together, and that makes him still a great leader. Do you follow? He didn't want political parties. He didn't want political conflicts. He cared about his reputation, about how the history would see him, and so that helped keep him on the moral, righteous path. Disinterested means he wasn't corrupt. He didn't want to profit from his service. He wanted to give service. He wanted to be the best president for the people. He wanted to serve the community. He didn't want anyone questioning his intentions. Right now we have someone the most opposite of Washington, because Trump is all about self-interest. He's corrupt. He's making profit off of his service. And so that is totally against what George Washington wanted. He is immoral fundamentally. He quits his leadership when he was at the height of his power. He quits. He could have been a king, and he quit. He says, "No, I'm going back to my farm. The country is in safe hands," until he comes back during the Constitution. He sets the precedent for future presidents. We're going to spend a little bit of time on him when we get to his administration, and we'll come back to that. So why did the Americans win? The Americans win because the British quit. That's the number one reason. It was too costly and too difficult to win. Other conflicts in the world, like Afghanistan War and then Vietnam War, are very similar to this. Iraq is similar. You stay alive long enough and you resist long enough, eventually the foreign power will leave. We left in Vietnam, we left in Afghanistan, and we left in Iraq. The opposition stayed, or were stabilized, but it was really about money. The Americans didn't give up. That's one of the main reasons we win. George Washington, the French help, and then, of course, George Washington. This is the strategy called the Fabian strategy. Basically, George Washington followed the Fabian strategy. He said, don't get your army destroyed. Live to fight another day. We're fighting on our own territory. That's another reason. And again, the French Navy troops, Marquis de Lafayette. Okay, this is the war of attrition. Attrition means to wear down. Don't give up. Eventually, the British will quit. The alliance really made a big difference. Again, all right. So again, let's go back. The Fabian strategy, is that still here? No, I didn't include it. So the Fabian strategy, and that's what I want to make sure we know. The Fabian strategy here was Washington's idea. It comes from ancient Romans, that the way to, when you're outnumbered and you want to continue the war, is you survive. And this is why George Washington was so instrumental. He avoided a conflict that would destroy the American army. When you go back to the New York campaign, he retreats. You go to Valley Forge, which was horrible. He keeps the army together through his charisma and his personality and all of these wonderful things. Don't let your army get destroyed, and you will eventually win. That's called the Fabian strategy. The last major battle is called the Battle of Yorktown. General Cornwallis is surrounded. Let me show you a map of that real quick. Oh, do I have a map? Let's see. Yeah, well. Yorktown is down here. The British were on the peninsula. They were waiting for the British Navy to come rescue them, and the French Navy came in and crushed them and surrounded them, and they had to surrender. So that's the second large army that has to surrender. And that's where Cornwallis, and Washington wins. 7,000 troops surrender. And that was a big message to the British, who were hemorrhaging money, and they said, there's nothing to be done. We cannot win. And they quit the war. Takes a couple years to negotiate the final treaty. It's called the TP, the Treaty of Paris. If we put a timeline, 63 is the PP, the Peace of Paris, ends the French and Indian War. 1783 is the PP, the TP. Remember, PP before TP. That's the Treaty of Paris. America, the United States is independent now. Declaration of Independence, 76. Okay? French entering the war in 78. Battle of Saratoga, 77. Do you follow? Constitution is written in 87. So the results, and this is the last part of this, and thanks so much for your effort. U.S. is independent. The boundaries are the Mississippi River, the Great Lakes, and Spanish Florida. 250,000 American soldiers fought over 10 years almost. A high percentage of Americans are killed. Most of the fighting was done by the poorest Americans, city laborers, farm boys, indentured servants, and sometimes slaves. Oh, I want to show you the map. I'm sorry, we have to show you the map. Do I have a good map? No, I don't have a good map. I'm sorry. Let me just get one from the internet here. Independence map. Alrighty, let's look at this. So, what do you see here? I guess that one. Let's copy that. Okay. Sorry for the delay on that one. So what you'll see here is this is what the map is going to look like. America, the United States, the first independence is getting all of this territory. This is Spanish. This is English. And then you do have some English colonies down here in the Caribbean. But this is totally independent United States. All right, you guys. Well, that's it. Let's end on a positive note. Thanks so much. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.